Hey folks, it's Megan and John from 4315. Enjoy this 15-minute bonus round where we talk to John, a fired organizer at the Anderson, South Carolina Starbucks location. First, let's give some background information before we start the interview.
So, starting with May 31st of 2022, there was a unanimous vote to unionize the Anderson, South Carolina store. It was 18 to 0. It was reportedly the first unanimous Starbucks win in the South. June 11th and June 12th, the first strike happened. The first strike happened over unfair labor practices. Hours were cut, Starbucks was stalling negotiations, and workers were told that they weren't allowed to wear pro-union t-shirts. July 22nd, second strike happens. Hours were cut significantly, and workers at that point had been unionized for nearly 2 months. Still no negotiations. And that brings us to August 1st. Workers gathered and did what's called a March on the Boss. They confronted their manager and asked for new equipment, and they also asked for the raises that Starbucks had announced for non-unionized stores. This was about a 6-minute interaction. The boss asked to leave the store. Workers said yes, but the boss filed kidnapping charges with the sheriff's office and said that the workers wouldn't let her leave until they got a raise. Now, on August 6th, the Anderson Starbucks Workers Union Instagram said, quote, "Partners were called this morning and told, without explanation and without an end date, that we're going to be paid for the remainder of what we were scheduled. Furthermore, we were told that we cannot step foot in any Starbucks location." September 2nd, Starbucks fired 5 baristas for cleaning the store after that second strike I mentioned earlier. Workers said that if they hadn't cleaned the store after that strike, food would have gone to waste, drink components would not have been prepared, and the customers would have been in a messy cafe the following day. And now that brings us to today. We're talking with John, one of the organizers who was fired from the Anderson Starbucks location in South Carolina.
How long have you worked at Starbucks and what did you do there?
So I have worked at Starbucks for 4.5 years, and I was a barista the entire time. I did worked at 3 different stores. I started in Charleston, South Carolina when I was in high school, and then I transferred back and forth between that store and a store in Tennessee while I was in college. And most recently, I have worked at the store in Anderson, South Carolina after I graduated college.
Your store voted 18 to 0 to unionize, and it was reportedly the first Starbucks in the South to have a unanimous yes vote. So, what tactics did Starbucks use to bust union efforts, and what advice would you give to other Starbucks stores and workers generally who are seeking to unionize?
Yeah, so I actually had not arrived at the Anderson store when they actually had their vote. Um, so I wasn't part of the actual voting process, but I did uh, transfer to the store because it was unionizing. And I started working just days after they had finalized their vote. But both in Tennessee, where I was in college, and here in Anderson, a tactic Starbucks used a lot was sending out deterring memos. So they would send out warnings that we would be losing benefits or there'd be a gap in benefits between unionized stores and non-unionized stores. Um, One big thing after the store in Anderson unionized was that management was telling baristas they couldn't wear union gear, which since then the NLRB has ruled it's against labor law to prohibit workers from wearing union gear. And they also told us we couldn't put up pro-union signs either in the front of house or the back of house. So we had different signs either talking about our union or just saying like "Welcome to your unionized Starbucks." That management kept kind of pushing back on saying we can't have those out. Including we had signs that stated you're only being paid the wage of one person. You need to like pace yourself. Burnout's not worth it. And they weren't big fans of those either. But my advice would be to stay strong, be vigilant, form a bond with your coworkers. We hang out outside of work a lot. We do a lot of things together, and it really helps grow that bond between us. I felt super at home ever since I got to this store in June. And then also in the actual process of labor organizing, I would advise people to, if possible, consult a labor lawyer or a labor organizer for guidance before taking any action. Um, our ability to consult with labor lawyers and labor organizers to make sure we're doing everything the right way within labor law has been just a great way to be at peace of mind that everything we're doing the right way, and that it's helped us be sure that everything that Starbucks does in retaliation we know is illegal. It's against labor law, so that's been a good way to help us like stay strong and be sure in ourselves as we push forward through the process, because it can be really daunting at times. So
Yeah, and that kind of segues into the next question, which is, so after the win, Starbucks responded by cutting hours and refusing to negotiate, and that resulted in two strikes and a march on the boss. Do you
mhm.
wanna talk about what happened that day, with the march on the boss, and do you want to talk about what's happened since?
Yeah. So that first strike, the main reason that the store went on strike, that was right after I got there. What was because what I've already mentioned with prohibiting them from wearing union gear, kind of just ignoring that they had unionized, not taking it seriously. Um, and the second strike was for our district manager kind of claiming that they couldn't make any unilateral changes, which has kind of been Starbucks's repeated mantra every time the union stores have asked them to change things. Um, but they were able to change our store hours and come in and take down our union stuff, which were also unilateral changes. And after both of those actions, uh, management really didn't do anything. Our district manager came in to talk with our bargaining committee after our strikes, kind of asking like, "Hey, what are the issues that we need to be fixing?" But nothing really changed, except like you mentioned, partners were getting hours cut. A lot of partners had requested full time, and they were getting 9 to 12 hours. When they'd previously been getting in the 30s of hours. So we just noticed those drastic cuts, and it was affecting people's livelihoods, their ability to pay rent, having to choose between gas and groceries. So that was when, on top of our previous actions, um, we performed the March on the Boss on August 1st, along with a lot of other of the unionized stores around the country, because Starbucks was following through with their promise to not give union workers, union stores, the wage that they had already delayed 4 or 5 times over the past year. They're bringing the wage up to 15. They said all the non-union stores would be getting it on the first, and we were not. So we approached our boss saying, "Hey, we want to get paid uh, an equivalent amount to our coworkers right down the street for doing the same job. We want you to fix our equipment. We can't operate if we have an espresso machine down, a sticker machine down, if our pitcher rinsers aren't working. We can't do our jobs." And so after that, the March on the Boss has just been kind of a whirlwind. Our former store manager filed an investigation into us in order to press kidnapping and assault charges. 11 of our employees were put on indefinite paid leave after that and were forbidden from stepping foot on any Starbucks property. And that was over a month ago. And we haven't really gotten much communication from corporate during that time, so we're just kind of waiting to see like when we're going back to work, what's going on. And then just this weekend, 5 employees, including myself and our lead union organizer, were fired, supposedly for entering the store after our second strike had ended to clean and prep the store to resume regular operations the following Monday. Um, so it's been a whirlwind. We have also gotten a chance to do a lot of press to make our story heard. It's been really cool getting to connect with baristas and organizers around the country, just kind of hearing how their experiences are similar to ours, and work with them to fight for all of our labor rights.
Yeah, and I know I promised, I was gonna ask as few questions as possible just to get this out fast, but I do have one more question, kind of
Yep.
based on what you said. So these firings, are based on like what is their reason for that? Like what is like I understand that it's because you went in and cleaned the store, but why would they fire you over that?
Yeah, so like I said, like they've kind of continued their MO of communicating with us as little as possible. They haven't answered any follow up questions our partners have had after being fired. They've just directed us to the Starbucks like 800 helpline. Um, but their initial reasoning, it just states that Starbucks chose to fire us because we were in the store when the store was closed. Their justifications would be that money was out, that we were messing with product when we weren't on the clock, we weren't scheduled. Um, our kind of pushback to that is that some of the partners who went in were actually scheduled to work that day, and we had already announced that our strike ended earlier in the afternoon. So um, any kind of justification that we had gone in the store went during our strike isn't true. And our reasoning for going in was that the store had been closed for 3 days already, and most of our product only lasts for 2 days. So we had gone in to clean the store, wipe it down, pull food from the freezer so that it would thaw overnight, and prep a lot of our sauces and prep items for our menu so that when we opened on Monday, normal hours, bright and early in the morning, we'd have things to serve to people. Especially puzzling to us since what we were doing, which is a clean play, is a Starbucks procedure where employees go in specifically to clean the store, is a regular occurrence at Starbucks. And many of these workers had never gotten any kind of corrective action before. So it kind of hit us out of the blue, and we haven't really gotten many answers on their exact justification. It's just a total sideswipe.
So I also have to ask, okay, to clarify, I watched that video of the March on the Boss where you guys supposedly kidnapped this manager, which is just it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like I couldn't believe it when I read that headline that that they were pressing charges for assault and kidnapping because I watched the person walk away and walk out of the building with
Right.
no resistance. So I'm just curious, like, what is the status on that? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I actually was the person that got pushed out of the way in that video. Um, and yeah, so the funny thing is, we had that first week, the police came to our store and kind of just asked us to reenact. I wasn't there when they came, but they asked the partners who were there to reenact what happened, kind of give their account. Um, we had a chance to speak to our lawyers about it, but nothing really has happened. It was an investigation being done ongoing, I guess, still from by the Anderson Police Department. And even though I was the person that actually got shoved out of the way, I'm assuming that would mean that the reason of the assault charge, I was never contacted by Starbucks about it, and I was never contacted by the police. It kind of has just floated in the air since a month ago. We haven't really heard anything back concerning that at all. Um, so I'm actually not really sure of the current status on that, but yeah, it really seems like it served the purpose to get 11 of our workers suspended indefinitely, because those 11 workers, some of which are part of the 5 that got fired, but the rest of those 11 workers are still on indefinite paid leave and are still forbidden from entering any Starbucks, and they're unsure about when they're going to go back to work. So it really seems like it just served the purpose of flushing those union workers out of the store.
Absolutely insane. Now, where can our listeners follow you for updates and how can we support you?
Yeah, absolutely. So people can follow us on our Instagram and our Twitter accounts. Both are Anderson SBWU. Um, we have our GoFundMe linked there, which all the funds for that goes towards financially supporting our 5 recently fired employees as they seek alternative employment as we fight for reinstatement. And just in general, supporting us, supporting the union in general. I'd encourage people to go on Instagram and Twitter and follow as many Starbucks union pages as you can. Stores are constantly giving updates on their efforts, what's happening at their stores when they're going on strike, and offering ways to support them, which can be monetarily. Right now, a lot of stores are doing sit-ins around the country where people go and sit and talk about the union, support the union verbally in cafes. Find a union store near you if you can. and support that store. Even just going in and saying like, "Hey, we support the union," can be really uplifting to hear. And especially the national level Twitter account is always updating things that are going on just with the Starbucks union in general. So those resources are really good for kind of keeping up to date with things that are happening.
Thanks for taking, the time at 11:30 on a Sunday.
Yeah, working
Much
around our stupid schedules.
Much appreciated.
It's totally fine. I'm definitely up at this time anyway. But I appreciate you guys reaching out. It's really, really encouraging to have us be able to get our story out there.